database marketer, woman after my own heart. I love it. And it's a really amazing segue. And we didn't plan that, but it is an amazing segue and lead in to what we're going to talk about next, which is how do you measure this, right? That's always the question. Hey, all this cool stuff, you can do all these things, you can pin things here. Does any of it work? That's the conversation that many of us as marketers dread, right? We have to sit down and justify the budget that we spent or the resources that we applied. Did it move the needle? And we thought that it was really important if we are truly building this ecosystem of partners who are helping us build this platform for pinners. We have to help you understand what's working. And so about a month ago, actually I guess about 2 months ago, we launched our first offering in the analytics space, Pinterest Web Analytics. We got really creative on the naming. Actually, it was very intentional because it is a platform that is designed to measure what's happening from your site. So if you're not familiar with it, this is an analytics tool, a dashboard. It's built right into Pinterest. So it leverages in a very natural and organic way all the activity that's taking place on the platform. It's measuring pinning from your site. So this product is not about what's happening on your profile. It's what is happening with the content that is being pinned from your site, from your domain. Using it, you can see pins and the number of people who are creating those pins. You can see repins and repinners. You can see the number of impressions those pins are generating for you, and you can see the number of clicks. So you can really start to get an understanding of what's working and what's not working over time. And more importantly, you can learn what pinners love most. And that's where we hope the tool really delivers on value for you, because the more you see what pinners love, ideally the more of that type of content you provide. And the more of that type of content you provide, the happier pinners are, the more of them come to the site more regularly, the more they re-engage with you. So we think there's a really nice virtuous cycle there. So take a quick look at how you go about accessing analytics. There are a couple steps you have to take to use the tool. The first, set up a business account. And this is a good idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, it puts you in a situation where you don't have to rely on someone's personal account within your company to be managing your presence on Pinterest. You should have one for your business. Secondly, it adds you to our database of businesses so that we can make sure that we are providing you with updates on features and products that we are releasing for businesses, invite you to beta test some of our products. So it's a good first step, and it's really easy to do. If you go to business.pinterest.com, there's a big red button there, pretty hard to miss. Join as a business. And so it'll walk you through that process of how you set up a business account. The second thing you'll want to do, and this is really important, is you'll want to verify your site. You'll want to verify your domain. And essentially, this creates a connection between your site and Pinterest. And it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, we know that trust on the web is a big issue. And this helps pinners understand this is the real you, right? This isn't someone masquerading around as a company that I think I'm engaging with. This is the real deal. That's one reason why it's super important. The second is it's a requirement to be able to access analytics. And the reason being is we have to make sure we can tell that it's really you looking at the analytics from your domain. And so we walk you through how to do it. Again, on the business site, if you go to the Get Started frame here, it'll walk you through a couple steps. Essentially, you are taking a few lines of code. You'll need the help of someone on your development team to add that code to the site. We'll quickly see the connection and verify it. It's pretty easy to do. And you'll know your site is verified. So if you were to go to your site, this is our site, or our profile on Pinterest. Next to your address, there's a check mark. And so if you have that check mark next to your domain on your profile, you're already verified. If not, we suggest you do it. Again, provides a lot of value to pinners, gives them the security and safety to know that they're dealing with the real you. So once you've done that, once you've got your business account, and once you've verified your domain, you can access analytics right from the menu in the upper right-hand corner. So drop-down menu here, and on that list will be analytics. And you click that tool, or you click that link, and you'll be taken to the dashboard. And this dashboard shows a number of things. At the top here, we see pins and pinners. So the blue line are basically the actions, and the orange is basically the people doing those actions. So pins and pinners. The blue number there, we see 4,370. That's the average daily number of pins. Same thing for pinners and repins and repinners. You can scroll down, you'll see impressions, and you'll see reach over time. You can change these dates if you want to look at different periods of time to understand what kind of activity is happening. It's very easy to do it. At the top of the page, there's a date range selector, and you can pick your own dates to see what kind of activity is taking place over what period of time. And it's pretty interesting. You can look at trends. You can zoom in on some of these data points and see specifically, in this case, how many pins were pinned on a certain day. So there were 8,171 pins, almost twice the daily average in this case. You can take a look at repins. And we think repins are a really important signal of engagement, right? When something gets repinned, that means that someone liked it enough that they're also sharing it with people who follow them. And it's interesting, sometimes you might want to know, well, what's driving a surge in repins, right? What's causing that trending? And so in this case, we see something spiked on January 21st. And so you can take a look, there's some buttons at the top. There's a most recent, most repinned, most clicked type of pin. So you can click, in this case, I want to see, well, what was it that was most repinned? Or what was driving all that repin activity? And I know that spike happened on January 21st, so I can use the date selector to see, well, what happened on that date? So what was most repinned on January 21st? This was one of them. And so in this case, this pin for what looked like some pretty delicious, I guess, chocolate chip cookie muffins. I'm starving right now, so I'm salivating. But this was pinned 2,300 times, over 2,300 times. And this is where you start to see some of the really interesting magic. When you look at the actual pin itself, you can see, well, who pinned that initially, and what board did they pin it into, and what other things were in that board, right? So when we talk about one dimension of the interest graph is that as objects are placed in these boards, they're basically being put in their own little social network with other objects around them, right? They now have a link with these other items. And so it's really interesting to see, well, what things do people pair with these items that they're pinning? And you're going to hear Nordstrom talk a bit about that and how that's informing some of the stuff they're doing in store. So you can see what board was it pinned into. Scroll down the page here, and we can see some of the comments. We can also see other boards it was pinned to, right? So we know it was pinned to that one that we looked at the top, but where else did it go? And this is also an interesting place where it gets pretty revealing, right? So there may be some intuitive places where you think it lands, but then you may see some places that really surprise you, and that could represent a really interesting opportunity for a marketer. You can also see that aside the boards they were pinned into, when people pin this, what other things did they pin? So people who pinned this also pinned these items. So it really starts to give you a real-time snapshot into how are people perceiving our products, what other things do they think go with our products, and what does that tell us about how we should be thinking about messaging, how we should be thinking about packaging, how we should be thinking about merchandising, and it's all in real time. Right? We've always had some capability to do those things. Often we can do some studies, but it can take a long time to get some of that data back, and sometimes it's not relevant anymore by the time you do. Now you can just look at it in real time. So lots of information there. And all of this data can be exported. So you can just click the button, you can set the date range yourself, export it into a CSV. So if you have other systems where you want to use the data, if you want to just look at it in a more raw form than what's here in the dashboards, you can do that very easily. So it's a great product. And like all of the products that we've talked about today, this is a free product. So it's kind of odd as someone who's spent most of his career in sales and marketing that I don't have anything to sell you. We only have free stuff. And this is one of them. But we think there's a tremendous amount of value that this provides the Pinterest ecosystem. So again, it's built right into the platform itself. So it has really nice ties and all the activity that's happening on Pinterest. It's measuring pinning from your site. So at some point down the road, we will continue to evolve and iterate on these products. We may provide some products to help you understand what's happening on your profile, but frankly, that's a very small piece of the opportunity that you have to understand, well, what are people doing with my content across my properties? And so that's why we really focus in there. We think that's the biggest opportunity for you. And so it's all about measuring pinning from your site. You can see pins, repins, impressions, clicks. And most importantly, it'll really give you insight into what do pinners love most. And the question that should come from that is, how do I give them more of that? Right? How do we rethink our content to line up with what we see getting the most repins, the most distribution, the most clicks? We just heard both Callan from Sony and Bonnie from Target talked about very different scenarios they see in terms of what types of content work well for them, right? So in some cases, a product on white background outperforms a product in natural context. In the other case, the exact opposite is true. And so it's going to be unique for each of you. And so that's why this product is so helpful. So we really hope you get some usage out of that. Again, you can learn a lot of this if you just go to business.pinterest.com. We walk you through the steps you need to get started with analytics. Okay? So with that, I'm incredibly excited to welcome Brian Gallipeau from Nordstrom. He's going to talk about how one of the world's most successful retailers is using analytics to drive their business. So Brian, thanks for being here.